Second. Testing. I want to make sure it's not too loud. Okay, thank you. Natasha, I don't know.
It's been a while. We have met, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So as you were transitioning into software, because when did you come on? I was trying to remember.
2021.
Yep. So okay, 2021. Yes. It was almost the exact. You come. So was it like November, fall of 21?
It
Or were you there
was
in
March of 21, but here's the thing, I was like 37 weeks pregnant. So I was there for 3 weeks and then maternity leave. And I would say, got my feet under me like spring and or summer and fall.
Yep, I was trying to. I felt it was like the fall when we had run into each other transition. So yeah, so you've been there about a year while I was there. I was at Profile during that time.
Yes, okay.
I was transitioning from paper marketing back into.
I can't always remember like the where and the how, but it'll drive me nuts going, how did it, why?
Yeah.
So,
And I can't remember exactly which meetings that we used to cross paths.
and what are you doing at first? It's First Interstate?
First international.
International?
Yeah, I lead their product division, so helping them with their product strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's lots of alignment there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are we doing lapels? Do you know?
So they said that they were over here. I know that they had requested a lapel, so I assume that they're gonna mic you guys up over here. There is one mic that they said that it will be like a 6 minute commercial though. Well, so we got some time. Well, I'm gonna run to the restroom. Sounds good. Check in here. Sounds good. Well, hi. Let me turn this off.
Finding a place to belong is everything. It's where you can make a difference, where you're heard, where you have a team that supports you, and the benefits you deserve. At Avera, you can find that place. You belong at Avera. Apply today. Avera.org/careers.
Sioux Falls is home to many things: locally owned businesses, an unmatched work ethic, and a community of leaders dedicated to growth and innovation. Powered by over 300 investors, Forward Sioux Falls is an advancement program aimed at enhancing the Sioux Falls economy. 2026 initiatives are well underway, focusing on talent retention, business attraction, and quality of place enhancement. Look to the future with Forward Sioux Falls.
Do you want to shape and lead the future? Walk with us. It's the team, the space, and the place that's going to get you where you want to be. It's USD.
The Greater Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce didn't start our thriving business community. That was done by individuals driven to create their dreams.
The Chamber does a lot with advocacy for businesses.
The Chamber is always looking to connect other people to your business.
So we joined right away, and we've been a member ever since.
The Greater Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce, we're standing at your side when nothing's gonna stand in your way.
What's affordable to her might not be for him. Our means may be different, but our need for energy is the same. And keeping the price for that energy as low as possible is exactly what we strive to do. It's what we've always done. Investments made 10 years ago have kept prices nearly unchanged. Investments made today will help keep prices predictable for the future, with energy that's cleaner, reliable, and affordable for all. An energy future that's American-made. Mid-American. Obsessively, relentlessly at your service.
In a world where life moves quickly and education comes in many forms, we believe there is still value in personal relationships, affordable, quality academics, and a supportive, Christ-centered environment. As the University of Sioux Falls looks to the future, we embrace what makes us different. If you're looking for a transformational experience, there is a difference. And that difference is here.
Here, we believe in doing good, even in small ways. In ways nobody sees and only a few notice. We do good in all the details. Through all the difficulties, we do good with every appointment, every conversation, every treatment. We do good for every person. Because no matter what we do here, we're making a difference. And it takes all of us to change somebody's life. Now think of all the good you could do if you join us.
There's something special about the people of Sioux Falls. It's home to go-getters, cultivators, and doers. Sioux Falls is a place where you can pursue your life and your purpose. You can slow down with your family or pick up the pace of your professional growth. It's that hard work, small town feel, close to the land, know your neighbor, endless possibilities that bring people here. Find out for yourself what a difference this state can make. Visit SiouxFalls.com/work, where over 40 of Sioux Falls' top businesses are hiring right now for people like you.
The #1 city for best small places for business and careers according to Forbes magazine, Sioux Falls.
Work Sioux Falls.
ZipRecruiter's #3 hottest job market, Sioux Falls.
Work Sioux Falls.
Over 40 businesses are hiring right now.
Work Sioux Falls.
That's why the Sioux Falls Development Foundation created Work Sioux Falls, a local resource that gives job seekers an inside track to jobs that are open right now.
Work Sioux Falls.
See the difference a local company can make in your career. Visit SiouxFalls.com/work.
It's not just the natural beauty, the outdoor playground, or the top-rated quality of life that puts our state on the map. Sioux Falls is also home to some of the most innovative and cutting-edge healthcare businesses in the country that attract worldwide pioneers in healthcare. Visit SiouxFalls.com/work to browse healthcare positions on all levels, from RNs to scientists, to business development and HR, among many others. Come find out why a healthcare career in Sioux Falls is your next move. Visit SiouxFalls.com/work to find your perfect fit. If you're ready to grow your career with the right company, Sioux Falls is the place to be. Sioux Falls is home to some of the fastest growing manufacturing, healthcare, and financial institutions that have their footprints all over the world. Be a part of something special, something growing, something that makes your short and long-term career goals possible. Sioux Falls businesses need you. Visit SiouxFalls.com/work to learn more about over 45 businesses hiring right now. That's SiouxFalls.com/work.
You've put in some amazing work, and everything is going to come out fantastic. So excited for everything.
All right, Lindsay, it's great talking to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'll see you Saturday.
Have a good
Okay,
day.
bye. All right, Maya, what should we do next?
I know.
Afternoon, everyone. Welcome. It looks like we have a full house. I know that there are a few seats in here if anybody does want to take a seat, for those who are standing, but I'm so glad that you are all here today. We might be waiting on a few mics here, so I'm going to just get us started. My name is Brooke Fitz, and I am excited, along with my panelists, to welcome you all here today and get ready to step into the future of workplace culture. This panel discussion is going to explore topics in microcultures and empowering employees for the jobs of tomorrow. We'll explore the fascinating world of microcultures within organizations, those vibrant subgroups that foster connection, collaboration, and creativity. As we navigate a new era of work, understanding and nurturing these microcultures can make all the difference in employee satisfaction and retention. We're here to shake up the conversation because, let's face it, a one-size-fits-all is only good for sweatpants. For those remote workers, you know what I'm talking about. And we'll talk about how to design work environments to attract top talent, keep employees engaged, and make Mondays, well, a little less Monday. So whether you're looking to boost creativity, amp up collaboration, or just get your team excited to log on every day, this session will spark ideas and create work culture that's unique to your team. So get ready for some light bulb moments, a few laughs, and a whole lot of actionable strategies that you can keep your talent moving forward and happy. But before we dive in and introduce our panel, I want to do a little experiment with this room on microcultures that exist right here, right now. So think about the most prevalent microculture elements that are found out there in our each generation that we have. So there's generational microcultures, along with the music industry also has a lot of microcultures built within it. And so I want to combine these two as they drive so much of our fashion trends, hairstyles, and face it, who we hang out with. So we're going to do a little experiment to see who in this room can complete the rest of this statement. So shout it out after when I point to you. 8, 6, 7. Yay! And whose number is it? So we do have some boomers here. Wonderful. How about for our audience member that might have young kids or grandparents in the room, can you finish this statement? Baby shark. All right. So microcultures do exist. And now we're going to jump into a few housekeeping items before we introduce our panels. Know that this is being recorded, so anyone who is not able to be with us today will be able to get the recording if they were a registered member. And also you are getting SHRM credits for attending this session. We will have a moderated Q&A coming up, so make sure you have your questions prepared. And I really encourage engagement. So one of the goals of our discussion today is to advocate for culturally diverse and inclusive workplaces involving inclusive initiatives and policies to fully support our workforce. You're encouraged to engage throughout this discussion, and if you hear something that you like, that you do, or that you want to get behind, I want to hear you snap those fingers. So for anyone who has remote teams, this is another way that we use to get excited if we hear something that we like on our meetings. So snap those fingers if there's something that you can get behind. Also, in the spirit of creating microcultures, let's embed some pop culture into our discussion and make this fun for our panelists. They don't know that this is happening, so this is new to them. For our panelists, after each piece of information that you share, you are going to yell out your personal preference on a topic of my choice. So the first pop culture topic will be your favorite professional athletic team. And I'll get started. Go Cowboys. I hear you. It's been tough, though. It's been a tough start. So, all right. So I'm so excited to introduce our panelists today. One thing that I love about our community is that I've run across each of these individuals over the course of my 20-year time here in this community. Over the course of 15 years, I, like Carla, know this when we first started talking about this panel, but I had applied at Blend. I started off my career when I was getting really serious about digital innovation and wanted to be part of an organization that was really at the forefront of digital. And Blend was doing that in our community. And so I was like, oh, do they have any job openings? And I was looking, they didn't have any job openings, but I was like, maybe if I make my resume super creative and I tell them that I'll work for free, they'll let me come work for them. And Carla did not hire me, but I have been a huge fan of Carla and Blend over the last 20 years as they've built a really, really great business and they've become leaders in their space. And then Natasha and I came across each other as she was coming into Sanford Health. I was transitioning out of Sanford Health, and so we got to transition together, going both directions. And so it was super great that she got to be here. And I found out about Noah coming into our community about a few years ago when my kiddo was playing on an athletic team, and we heard about this family coming from Colorado that was a super athletic family, and that the mom and dad were professional leaders and that they were going to be big stars in our community. And lo and behold, Noah Shepherd shows up, and he's been a good friend ever since he's come into this community. So couldn't be more excited for this panel today. I think you all are going to learn a lot. I know I have from each of them. So it's been fun to see all of them grow in their careers and be leaders in their spaces and talk to us about their microcultures. I've spent 20 years in the marketing and digital product space. Most of that time has been in financial services. And then I took a little bit of a hiatus and went into healthcare and worked for Sanford Health. And then took another hiatus and went into consulting and discovered that there was a need in the market for affordable social media content solutions for small businesses. So being a problem solver, I wanted to solve for that, and so founded a company called Jotter, Your Social Companion, where we help small businesses create their social media content. I'm an advocate for servant leadership. I consider myself a professional balancer of all the things, juggling career, family, and community involvement. So whether leading a fintech project or supporting my team, or cheering on my kids, I've learned to find harmony in all of the chaos. And go Cubs. All right, Noah. Noah is a visionary leader as a spirited president and CEO of USD Foundation and Alumni Association. Noah is all about rallying alumni to create a lively and thriving community. From quarterbacking to leading teams at Amazon and Molson Coors, Noah believes in great leadership that can uplift others while making the journey enjoyable. He is a community connector, and whether launching initiatives or coaching his kids, Noah loves bringing people together, believing every day is a chance for a great team huddle. Noah, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I think you covered it, and just want to start out by saying how humbled and blessed I am here to be with you all today. This is, if you asked me 10 years ago that I'd be standing or sitting in front of you guys, I would have said you were lying, but this is truly an honor for me. Met my wife, Abby Shepard, who I love dearly. We met at USD and now have the opportunity to work for our alma mater, and it's just a blessing, a pinch me moment every day. So grateful for how many doors that the university has opened up for us in our lives, and three kiddos. My son Coy, excuse me, he's my middle. My wife wouldn't let me name him Coyote, so we just went COY. And there's some truth to that, depending on who you ask. But extremely blessed to be working in this community throughout our state, and working for a brand that I truly believe in and I care about at the bottom of my core. So excited to be with you all here today, and hopefully you can take something that I've experienced in some of my career journeys, whether it be sports or corporate world or now in the nonprofit sector. So just excited to share with you all today.
Thanks, Noah.
Green Bay Packers.
That way. All right, that brings us on to Carla Santi, the CEO and founder of Blend Interactive. Carla is an entrepreneurial leader. She successfully led her company through nearly 2 decades of growth and innovation in web strategy and development. She's a champion for women in tech, committed to being a relatable role model, inspiring more women to pursue leadership roles and STEM careers through mentorship and advocacy. She's also an advocate for workplace culture and understands the importance of creating tailored work environments that support employee success and align with her team's values and goals. Carla?
Hi, everybody. I've been on stage this morning, and then my former business partner dropped my name more than once at lunch today, so you probably know plenty about me by now. But I started building websites in the late 1990s because it was cool. I actually have a degree in graphic design, but back then web was new and it was very graphical, and it was the right time. And so same as you, if I would have been able to see the future, I would not have seen myself sitting up here. I don't know that I had set out to start my own business. I just had a great skill set that was needed at the time, and work came in. I partnered with Dean and another partner, Joe, to create Blend Interactive, because we were a blend of both design and development, which was very uncommon and still sometimes is in websites. So work just kept coming in, so we had to hire employees, and then I guess that makes it a real business. In entrepreneurship, I think you have every role and every job at some point, especially when you first start out. You're the finance person, you're the salesperson, you're the one doing the actual work, you're the project manager, you're all the things. I think Dean said I was a creative director. That was a short stint. But it's been fun to grow our company and hire one by one the roles that I felt I wasn't either good at or I didn't want to do anymore. And that left the CEO role. I kind of joke, but I actually really enjoy leading the company, and culture is important to me. At Blend, we have 25 people, so we're not huge, but pretty much any one of my employees could be a full-time remote employee for any big corporate employer, and they choose to work here. So that's what's important, is how do you differentiate? How do you create a company that makes people want to stay and turn down that offer from Google? So it's been an evolution over the years, what that looks like and what it means, but I'm excited to be here today and share what I know. Go Liars, Cheaters, and Stealers, my fantasy team.
All right.
Steelers as in like Steelers, right? Get it? But Liars, Cheaters, and Stealers
like
is
it.
my fantasy team.
I like it. Okay. Yeah, fantasy teams are welcome. And that brings us to Natasha Smith, the head of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion for Sanford Health. She is an equity champion. As head of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion at Sanford, Natasha is dedicated to influencing strategies that break down barriers and foster belonging for all. She's a social responsibility advocate with her background in corporate social responsibility, and as well as a working Latina mother, Natasha brings valuable perspective to drive equitable clinical outcomes and workplace inclusivity. Community builder, whether serving as the MB board or co-founding pathways to equitable and inclusion workplaces, Natasha is all about uplifting her community and championing a great cause. That is a mouthful.
Oh, well, thanks, Brooke. It's so good to be with you guys today. I'm really excited for our session. I think you did a great job in the bio, but would maybe add, reading between the lines in a bio is so incredibly important. One of the things that I share really transparently with my community and my workplace, the people I serve, is that I had a really challenging upbringing. So I grew up in what I would consider to be really extreme poverty, in and out of shelter environments, accessing food pantries, dealing with food insecurity, those sorts of things. And so when my counterparts say, like, if you could see into the future, you probably wouldn't have imagined where you'd be sitting and the spaces you would have access to. I really resonate with that, and especially for the younger generations in the room, I think it's so important to normalize that, and for folks with, the titles and the letters behind their name to really say, your future is up to you. Your past and your roots don't necessarily define that. I also would maybe add, just the various lived experiences. In culture, I talk a lot about the different lived experiences that people bring to their work, bring to their workplaces, and bring to their communities. And it's impossible to frame up all of those lived experiences and all of those identities on one slide, right? We talked a little bit about the professional background, but I'm also a military spouse. My husband served in the Air Force for 16 years. I'm also a mother of 4, managing 4 children. There's not a lot of people these days that have 4 children. I'm lucky to work for a woman who does. And that shared lived experience, right, is super important. So there's so many identities, right, that we all bring to our work, the different lived experiences. And I'm a true champion and advocate that the more diverse the lenses are around a table, the better product we produce. The more innovative we can be, the trust we build, and we can truly design things that are built for diverse communities, and that's where we exist. So really excited for the conversation, and I am extraordinarily sorry to disappoint you all. I don't know a thing about sports, so
We'll give you a pass. All right, thanks, Natasha. So let's start by just defining what are microcultures. And first I'll start, the next pop culture topic is going to be favorite musician or band, so hopefully that'll give you something new to add. But microcultures are pockets of connections where employees can bond over common characteristics like hobbies or department goals. They enhance employee engagement, collaboration, and retention by providing a sense of belonging. Think of them as the secret sauce that makes a workplace feel like home, even if it's a virtual one. And you should all listen to Chris Stapleton. So, panelists, as we talk about company culture, what is the secret sauce that makes a microculture special in your team? And is it more like the hot sauce that kind of kicks it up, or is it like the avocado that makes everything kind of smooth and better? And we'll start with Natasha.
So, I think in terms of microcultures, what makes it so impactful is really knowing your people. It's really impossible, I think, to be responsive to the specific populations and the specific communities and demographics that make up your workplace if you don't know them and know them well. When we think about surveying and listening, having really robust strategies, no matter the size of your organization. Our organization is nearly 50,000 people. And I think a large organization like that, it increases the responsibility to be sophisticated in really understanding some of the microcultures or smaller populations that might exist within the broader or more dominant cultures. And so I think that that's, what makes it really, really special is when you can be sophisticated in that listening strategy and really understanding all of the different populations that make up your workforce. And music artist, I'm digging Chappelle Roan right now, and so I'm looking at like my Gen Z over here, hoping to relate to you.
Yeah. All right, Carla, what is the secret sauce?
I'm still stuck on this music question. This is really hard.
I'm sorry, I
just
totally
turned on
rocked their
Spotify.
world with this. I didn't prepare them for this.
Okay, what is my secret sauce? Yep. That's the actual question. Well, our microculture is much different with a team of 25 instead of in the thousands means a lot different to a small business. That doesn't mean that we don't have them, and they might look a little bit different. At our company, our 10-year target is to be known as the best in the industry. And so, like, how do you know that? So we have different markers and awards and things that we try to get. One of the things we do is we take the Gallup Q12. I don't know if anybody's heard of that one before. But one of the questions that we kind of get stuck on is, do you have a best friend at work? And I've always been like, you shouldn't have one. Like, that's not okay. But research shows that if you have a best friend at work, you're more likely to stay. You feel more, it's more inclusive. You have a buddy. So I think knowing that it is important to have friendships at work, we try to, the best that we can, provide opportunities to get to know someone on a personal level. Not just working side by side on a project, but really getting to know someone. So sometimes I'm not going to say force culture, we create activities that people can participate in, and then people that like the same activities sometimes like each other. So providing just opportunities for things to organically happen is kind of how we go about doing that. I have an office full of developers. Turns out a lot of them like gaming. No stereotypes at all, they just do. So after lunch, there's like a crew of people that go in the conference room and they play some game up on the big screen, so and cool. They have their people. While that's going on, we have another group of people that goes for a walk after lunch when it's nice. I'm part of that group and I go along. And so you kind of see these little microcultures happen because you're providing opportunities for that to happen. Now that doesn't take into consideration remote work. This is the one day a week we're together. I provide those things. So you really have to think, how can you assemble and create a microculture when you have a remote workforce? So that's TBD, right? We're trying ways to bring people together, but it's ultimately harder.
Yeah, interesting secret sauce. I love the buddy system. So I've also heard for our HR friends in the room, when onboarding, having a buddy while you're onboarding can be super impactful. And actually retention has shown us that if you have a buddy while onboarding, I think it's a 2-year, you're more likely to stay with that organization for 2 years, because 2 years longer than the natural attrition, because you had that person with you to go through all those experiences. So super interesting. Noah, how about is most of your team remote or?
No, Spotify Indie Rock channel. How's that sound?
Was not, yeah.
Does that count? Okay, Half Moon Run in the Bahamas.
Nice. I love that I'm getting to know more things about you through this. This is so cool. Okay. Secret sauce, Noah.
Secret sauce, that's it reminds me of a concept that I actually learned from culture change consultants, so this is not mine, and if there's trademark implications here, find me, I guess. But when you talk about the sauce itself, Natasha touched on it, but really knowing your people. As leaders, you can put yourself in a position to allow them to go through the chain of command. But have you spent enough time understanding that your people, their needs, are they in the right seats? Are they in an area where they can be successful long term? But the concept itself is, if you think of a stew, a really nice stew, you can have the freshest ingredients. You can have all the great things, which I think are our people, right? You put those in the pot, but if you put some rancid broth in there, what happens to the fresh ingredients, right? So when you start to look at cultures as a whole, are you managing your teams appropriately? Are you putting people that accentuate each other's weaknesses and strengths in the same groups, where they can really focus on your vision, mission, values, core values? And then the discipline and consistency to make sure that they're tracking towards those goals. The discipline and consistency piece, when it comes to culture, I think the secret sauce is not the flavor of the day. Okay. Culture cannot be flavor of the day. You have to be consistent with it and disciplined with it. Making sure that your people, feel appreciated, because without discipline, you'll never start a good culture, and without consistency, you won't be able to sustain or finish. So I think just having a good understanding of who your people are, where their strengths are, and then allowing them to be very driven by their passions, right? I loved what you were saying about being able to go on walks, empowering those ideas, bring those to the surface, And then, folks will start to turn around and not look at their glass as half empty, but half full, and start to understand how they can really lean into those strengths to forward your mission, your vision, your values, your core values. That's very important. So I would say the secret sauce for me, have a really good broth, which is your culture. And that comes from the top down, and then allow and empower folks to kind of break out into those microcultures, as long as we're continually focused on what our end goal is and what we're going after as a group.
Band?
Oh, band.
Or any musician that you'd like to share?
Morgan Wallen.
Oh, okay. All right.
Curveball.
And I think what Noah's talking about really aligns with what we heard from Ben Utek today too, like talking about how culture from the top down, like the leadership truly needs to, it can't be flavor of the day. The leadership needs to instill the consistency of this is who we are as an organization, and continue to make sure that we're listening to our people and understanding how culture is impacting them. And if there are things that we need to make adjustments, but it's gotta be for that long-term consistent message and feeling of culture that you're building. And so I think that's very consistent. All right. Yeah. So I'm going to repeat the question for those that are online. So the question is around if DE&I initiatives conflict with, from a culture perspective, if there's any conflict there, like you want to hire this person, but it doesn't necessarily align with the DE&I initiatives. Natasha, you're probably, or most qualified. I think Natasha's probably best equipped to answer that.
I think for organizations that are growing and maturing, it's going to be really important to define what do we mean by cultural fit. I think, if we're too subjective, right, there's a real risk in not promoting or hiring an individual that from a merit perspective is the most qualified. And so I think it's not necessarily an answer, but a question back. What do you mean by cultural fit? And from there, we can really dive into, what elements are we feeling as though somebody may not be a fit? Value systems, right? And what we have normalized in workplaces tend to sway how much or how little we think someone may or may not be a fit. And if we can get curious and we can dive into, what is the culture of a unit, a department, a building, I think that the answers lie there, because we should be hiring, an individual who on paper is the most qualified. But the real work becomes, are we an employer that attracts talent, that brings diverse lived experiences, that will improve, right, the work that we do and how we do it. But I think that there are more questions there probably than answers. I think so. A lot of the work that I do is educating around like Midwestern culture and how Midwestern culture makes conflict really difficult. In the Midwest, right, Minnesota nice, they're our neighbors, but that pervasive kindness that has rewarded silence to a fault, right? We ignore problems until they reach kind of a critical point. We're very apprehensive or conflict avoidant as a community, as a culture. And so one of the best things that we can do in our workplaces is really invest in conflict management, because there are no organizations absent conflict. There are only organizations that are good at conflict and those that are not good at conflict. And so it sounds like, just based on the comments, the root of that might be conflict education. How do we work with people who are different? Our society has really rewarded like a focus on sameness. Like, let's focus on what we all have in common and really avoid some of our differences. And in reality, I think we can move through and become better workplaces when we can fully acknowledge our differences and get better at conflict.
I think it gets back to that broth equation, right? Like, you have different spices and flavors that are then going to enhance the overall team, and it's going to be necessary to make the team the best it can be. And sometimes that can be a hard sell depending on where the specific position. But I think if you feel strongly about somebody that can add something, or maybe something needs to be subtracted, if you have some really strong personalities, right? You need somebody to be the avocado. I think certainly knowing that having that variety is going to make a really good broth. It'll make it easy to remember that. Yeah.
Just to kind of build off of her point with that going from there, it may not be something that's necessarily more of like a conflict issue of working with somebody that's different from you, but more of just like kind of going back to that Gallup question, do you have a best friend at work, where if somebody comes in, personally, I'm looking for somebody right now and I have a small team of 5.
Sure.
Trying to find somebody that's going to fit in there where, if they come in and they are completely different personality-wise, style-wise, hobbies-wise, how are they going to find that best friend in that small team?
Yeah, great.
Where they feel like they belong in that culture, even though they were the most qualified candidate?
Great question. And so the question was, when you have a small team and you have somebody that's so different, how do you make them feel included? I think Carla probably deals with this more than anyone.
Right. It's challenging because when I think of diversity, I own a tech firm and we are about 50-50 male-female, which is a feat that is challenging enough. But for us, talent pool is tricky, just qualified professionals that want to work here in Sioux Falls. When we're interviewing, yes, we always hire the most qualified person.
Dang it.
I know. Sometimes it's frustrating because you want to be a more diverse firm and you feel like you should hire the person because it rounds out the picture of who you are. But when you're, a team of 5, you can't afford to hire the person that isn't the best fit for the actual service to be provided. So it's a challenge. And yes, there are personalities sometimes that may not mesh with what you feel like your culture is today. However, in my experience, we've been around for almost 20 years, typically that person, even though you think they might not fit, ends up fitting in somehow, but maybe not fitting in. Your culture adapts to them. And really it's how can conflict resolution, like how can you find the similarities in these two people or this group of people, and really focusing on that. So I think it's easy to say like, oh, this person is this way, and so they just wouldn't work here. You really have to look at like, okay, what could we do to make them feel welcome, and how can they then affect us in a different way? So I think it's just an evolution, right? Like you keep learning from each other and hopefully give it a try. And if they ultimately don't work and things are like your values are not being adhered to, or if they're not performing in some way because it's getting in the way, then it's not a good fit. But you shouldn't avoid the challenge.
Maybe just to pluck something out of what you said, like if you think somebody may come along and change your culture, I would challenge you to let them, right? Like just think about what that could look like.
That's a great point. I also wonder if maybe not within your organization, but if we can do things to help partner with mentorship outside of the organization, so that if they, if they're not feeling like there's someone that's really aligned, like how can we support them maybe externally and align them with activities or people that we know that they would find value in partnering with, and that they would have that connection maybe even outside of the walls. So, yeah. Predictive index, great tool.
Amazing tool, because it actually, and it doesn't tell you if they're smart or dumb, it just tells you their personality and how to work with them. And there's even a part in that where 2 co-workers can have that, say they're feuding or just a conflict that's hard to resolve, and actually
Thank you for sharing that. I think that there is a lot of technology out there that can help us. Predictive index is one of many that can help us resolve these conversations, that can help guide us down a path. If I have somebody who's not quite fitting in, what are next steps that I can do to support them and the team? As you know, it's not just that person. I guarantee you the team is also trying to figure out how to navigate those individuals. So yeah, thank you for sharing. All right, so our next topic for our panel is going to be their favorite Sioux Falls restaurant. And we're gonna delve into why microcultures matter to businesses. And they matter because engaged employees are happier and more productive. Companies embracing microcultures achieve better business outcomes. And these subgroups also help reduce turnover as employees feel valued and connected. And you should eat at Parker's Restaurant downtown on Main. So leaders, how do you set the tone for your team's microculture? And what are some of the tangible business outcomes that you have experienced through those microcultures? Noah?
Yeah, that's a deep one there. No, I think, you know, and I certainly don't want to be repetitive here, but, you know, having that vision, being consistent, and then being very, you know, having discipline behind it, okay? It's kind of the top-down approach, but I think the microcultures itself are kind of the, straw that stirs the drink a little bit. You know, when I think of all the different subgroups that we have in a team of, you know, just under 40, I think they're all, you know, very, very aligned in what the overall mission is, but you have your, you know, people refer to them as cliques, right? But they can continue to challenge the status quo. They can bring up good ideas, which you want to encourage. Create an environment where they feel free to share those ideas and bring those things to the surface for the greater good. And we've certainly experienced that in my brief 4 months as president and CEO at USD Foundation. Understanding that those ideas don't have to come from me. I've actually empowered our entire team. Those ideas come from you. We own this together, instilling that sense of ownership in what we're after. But again, bringing some potential problems or issues to teams that you've seen connect, and not in the sense of, hey, point out the problem, but bring us a solution. And they start to work together and band together and get behind that, and other folks see that. And I think, again, that's kind of the stew, the broth that's starting to turn a little bit into, you know, very, very fresh, and we're starting to see some really good results because of that. Now, some tangible evidence that we've seen. You know, we have a culture right now of grit. So not in the sense of being, you know, just being able to persevere through things, but gratitude, respect, integrity, and trust. So we're always going to show up, whether it's internally, externally. That's what we've committed to as a staff. But the tangible piece of that is how our folks interact at staff meetings. We've done some activities where we've had to get them away from their work families and put them at different tables, put them in uncomfortable situations to start to understand who's who, and really understand, you know, at the core who our team is and who we're going to battle with each and every single day. So I think there's ways that you can kind of mix that up, make people feel a little, you know, more valued in different circles. And then you almost get that cross-pollination effect where it's, you know, iron sharpens iron in a sense, where these great ideas continue to flow throughout your organization. People feel empowered and are willing to speak up and challenge the status quo. And at the end of the day, that's what we want, because our goal is to leave it better than we found it, and we're not done. So, Sioux Falls Restaurant?
Yeah.
Crave.
And I'll just add to that, I think when we look at education systems and universities in particular, and you see the life cycle of microcultures from when someone goes into a university and then becomes part of an alumni and then becomes part of somebody who's investing then back into that culture. I can't think of a greater tangible return on an investment of where culture is so important and why we have to get it right, because there is tangible business repercussions if you don't. So it's a great, I think, use case of how you can see that full circle impact of microcultures feeding the business on the backside. Carla, do you have anything to add?
First of all, Crave is a franchise. It's not a Sioux Falls restaurant.
Phillips Diner.
Good job. Okay. Well, you called me out. I'm going to call you out. So I kind of actually forgot what the original question was.
The tangible outcomes of creating microcultures and supporting it.
These questions are throwing me off, these favorite thing questions. Okay, I am still going to go off that question just a little bit, because I think one of the things that I've been thinking about sitting on this panel is like, how do you even identify microcultures? As I was thinking about my company, like what are they and who are they and what do they look like and how do I create them? And so I'm going to speak to that a little bit, because I do think it's relevant, because it does tie into the business as a whole. And my job as CEO is to understand my team, obviously set an example, but really understand the people that work for me. If you work for a large corporation, this would be like the managerial level, or your direct reports, like really get to know them. And so what I do at my company is, because I'm not on projects anymore, I sometimes don't know people that well. Like you get to know people when you're like in the trenches with them. But when you're just, the leader, it's hard to get to know someone personally, especially for remote employees. So I missed that. We heard Dean talk about kind of the in-between, the gaps where you get to know someone. So I had to create that for my whole team, not just the remote employees, but they each meet with me one-on-one over Zoom, or they can pick in the office. We can go for a walk, and it's called a 30K meeting, Carla with a K, 30 minutes, but it's like 30,000 feet. Like, what's going on in your life? And I set these up via Calendly, and it says like, tell me 3 things that I should ask you about. And I would say that that's like the most revealing thing in somebody's life, because you get to know either their hobbies, like ask me about travel, or I helped one of my employees pick the paint color for their basement. Like you get to know them, like, oh, we're remodeling our house, or oh, we're going to this show this weekend. I really like this favorite band, or whatever. But that has been really helpful for me to understand everyone that works for me. So when I think about what we can provide as a company, I better understand what people may like, dislike, gravitate towards, maybe identify some different groups just by what I've gotten to know about them. And getting to know your employees takes time, like literally have to schedule it, but I find it so rewarding. And honestly, sometimes it's uncomfortable, right? There are developers that don't like talking to anybody, and when they have to talk with me for 30 minutes, they're like, get this over with. But it honestly is great, and they warm up, and it's super important to help identify maybe what those microcultures might be.
Restaurant? Oh.
I meet with everybody at least once a quarter, so 4 times a year. And that's just like these formal ones, like if they're in the office, like I'll swing by and say, hey, that kind of thing. It's not like I'm actively avoiding anyone.
The intentionality of that says a lot about your leadership, and also I could imagine to the employees, though some of them it may put them in an uncomfortable situation, they're developing a relationship with you, and it opens up that door for conversation, which I think is so vital when we're talking about microcultures and how do we make sure that everyone is feeling good about the culture, and that if things need to get changed, you can have those silent folks that may be disgruntled, but they're not going to come forward because they haven't built a relationship with their leaders. And so I think that also opens up the door for further conversations.
I'll just add, I think that leadership is its own microculture, and you have to be careful to break out of it, right? Like you can't just be comfortable with your director level and talk to them all the time. I admit, like I look forward to some calls more than others because I might already know them, or I know that they're more like me. But that's good. I think those uncomfortable calls that you make with people that you don't know very well are some of the most beneficial. But yes, I'd much rather talk to the people that I talk to every day, but we have to be careful not to do that. And I would say any of Ricardo's restaurants, Mirabella, our wine bar, I'm a fan.
Yes. Good suggestions.
Repeat the question, Brooke.
Yeah,
I'm focused on Italian food now.
Yeah, you bet. So this is, and sorry, I'm backing up. Okay, so this is where how you set the tone for your team's microcultures, and then the tangible outcomes that come from that.
Thank you. Yes. So the first thing I would say is my role is a lot different, right? I operate strictly through influencing strategies. You know, I'm not a direct leader of, you know, a company. I do have a small team that kind of helps with embedding equity principles in the things that we do, right, as an employer and as a caregiver. So I think my vantage point is probably just a little bit different, but what I would share in, you know, the ways that we have truly realized culture change in our organization is some of the emphasis and some of the education that we've actually put on unconscious bias, discrimination, microaggressions. You know, what we know through research is that microaggressions, they disproportionately impact women and people who have underrepresented identities, and they have a giant impact in how much or how little someone will relate to the culture, you know, in the workplace or in a given environment. Microaggressions, if you're not real familiar with the term, you know, they're subtle slights, snubs. They can be environmental, like, you know, a building that the ADA compliant entrance is around the back and you've got to pass some trash cans to get into the lobby. Like, that's a real thing in our communities. It's an environmental microaggression, but they can also be, you know, jokes, you know, bad humor under the guise of, you know, a joke that really plays on a stereotype. It can just be assumptions, pervasive assumptions playing off of social norms. Recently, I had a physician tell me, you know, Tasha, I don't wear my wedding ring at work anymore because I'm so tired of being asked what my husband does. She's a woman, she's a female physician. She said, I have to explain to people that I'm gay, you know, I have a wife. And it's just these, you know, these really subtle things in culture that, you know, we've historically left unnamed. We don't really know how to address them. And so some of our learning strategies this year have really been around, let's talk about this. Let's talk about microaggressions. Let's define what they are. And let's give people tools and resources to speak up. And really, you know, raise their hand and interject. Let's validate somebody who's experiencing a microaggression. Let's teach people along the way. You know, I think one of the most important things that we can do in this space is normalize that we're all gonna mess up. You know, we're all going to say things that are maybe a stereotype or they're insensitive to certain populations and communities, but creating spaces where we're free to be a student, that we are free to learn about different populations and different people. You know, and so that's what we've done in the past year. And, you know, in healthcare, this work is so important. 1 in 5 physicians is not born in the United States. So we lean heavily on individuals that come from all over the world, different cultures, different backgrounds, multilingual communities, to fill really critical care gaps, particularly in specialties, right? So you think about the specialty physicians, you know, that's a really important strategy for us from an employee engagement perspective, because ultimately we want people to find Stanford Health and we want them to stay in our communities. And so for us, educating on this topic and really normalizing the conversation has been critical. And we're seeing movements in our employee experience, our retention. And so I think that education is paramount. That's how we influence, you know, and change culture. Because at the end of the day, if we don't have the tools and the resources and the knowledge, we're really ill prepared, I think, to navigate diverse workplaces, the change in demographics in our younger generations, et cetera. And then food, you know, I am a foodie. I obviously got really distracted when she said Maribella. So I think my favorite might be Sanaz.
Oh, good one. And I think it's so important. Natasha's done a really nice job, I think, of educating not only within the walls of Stanford Health, but in the community in general. And as microculture leaders, it is our job to continue to educate ourselves because it's always changing and always evolving, and the right ways to go about things will continue to change. And so anything that we can do to continue to educate as leaders, I think is super important. So we're gonna do one more topic before, oh, yes, please.
So how do you avoid microcultures turning into cliques that exclude people? And then if that were to happen, how do you undo that?
I think great question. So the question was, how do you create microcultures that don't create cliques that could exclude others? I'll open it up to the panel. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we could all probably weigh in on this one. You know my answer, we work together, is education. Like, education is the antidote to bias. Bias oftentimes drives some of that clique behavior. I talk a lot, you know, in my work about bias. You guys have probably heard me say that word 7 times. the affinity bias, right? Like I do a lot of education around that, and affinity bias is totally benign. There's nothing wrong with affinity bias. It's that desire or preference for people who have a similar likeness. We share similar qualities, similar lived experiences. When my family gets together with other families on Sunday to watch football, women get together around the chips and salsa. The men do something else. I don't know what they do because I don't go find them. And kids go play in the basement. There's nothing wrong with that. I want to be with women who know what my lived experience in this phase of life is like. There's comfort and validation in that. But affinity bias is problematic if it's influencing hiring decisions, if it's influencing how someone gets treated in a break room, if it influences how a patient gets treated, right? The context of that bias is super important, and it's a heavy influence on culture and can lead to cliques. Like affinity bias would really be kind of at the root of, how are cliques born? But I think awareness goes a really long way. Like even talking about affinity bias to the other women that I'm with, it's kind of humorous, right? But at the end of the day, they all walk away with this notion that like, oh, bias isn't a moral failing. It's literally born from a cognitive thinking process, and my preferences don't make me bad, but I have to be aware of them. I have to know the implications of that in the workplace. And I think that that's where the true power lies.
That's great advice. Anyone else? All right. Anything else?
Sure.
For our next topic?
Thanks for that. No, I have an answer. I'm good. So I think when I don't have the research-backed answers as my colleague here, but I'm going to say that when I think about a clique, I think about exclusivity and unwelcoming, like mean to other people. Maybe this like Mean Girls movie coming to mind. But like a clique to me is a group of people or a segment of people who is not open to sharing their experiences and their thoughts with others. And maybe that's wrong. I'm not sure. But we're talking about microcultures, so what's the difference between a microculture and a clique? To me, if we're supposed to have a best friend at work or a group of people that really enjoy working together, that's great. But if they're going to do book club together, maybe we just mention, hey, we do good book club. Does anybody else want to be in it? So being inclusive and having your microculture, I think, avoids the clique-like experience. But yes, I think that we all gravitate towards people that we like, and sometimes we need to remember that everybody should be included in those groups at work, in the workplace.
Yeah, I think that's a great distinction, right? Like when we think of clique, it's more of a negative, unwelcoming approach, where creating a microculture is more everyone's welcome if you want to be a part of it, but don't feel bad if you're not. Like if you don't want to be, it's okay, right? And so I like the positive versus the negative kind of definitions there and distinction. So we are running up against some time here, so we're going to take a pause on the topics for the panels, and we're going to do one quick. I think it's important because most of the people in the room probably are experiencing this right now. Last topic before we open it up for questions, but the workplace landscape is dramatically shifting, and for some that means that there's no cramped cubicles or daily commutes to work. Hybrid and remote models offer perks like increased productivity and work-life balance for some, but some companies are pushing for a return to the office. I know Amazon had just recently reported such things, that they want people back in the office. But how can we balance these preferences while maintaining employee engagement and keeping our microcultures intact? So who's got the most remote or hybrid folks in this group? Probably me. Yeah, so
Okay.
Back on the stand.
Well, you guys all heard Dean talk at lunch, I think, but yes, so a company of 25, we have a downtown office above the toy store. Any given day, we have 5 to 10 people that come to work in the office, and the rest are choosing to be hybrid, like are close enough to come into the office but don't. And then we have 2 remote employees that can't come back that we bring back twice a year. So, what was the question?
So how do you keep your microculture intact with
Yes.
the hybrid and remote situation?
Okay, so sorry, I got thinking about restaurants again. So it's weird. I'm not gonna lie. So we have a beautiful office downtown, and this whole group of people from around the North America that can't come into the office. But one thing that I saw when we were all fully in the office every day, 9 to 5, back in the olden days, is that we have a kitchen, and the developers or the PMs would all go work together at a table in the kitchen. And it's just like a collaborative, hey, let's go work in here. So now, like, we have Code Kitchen. So some of the devs go sit at a table in the kitchen, turn the Zoom room on. So on the screen are 2 more developers just sitting there, like maybe not even talking. Sometimes it's just having their presence with the people that are local. So it's trying to find those bridges between remote and in person. And it's not easy, because when we first came back to the office, which is just 1 day a week, but I thought, well, we can't do the fun stuff anymore. We can't go on walks. We can't celebrate a birthday, because like it's not including the entire company. But ultimately, as an organization, you need to decide, like, do you give up all that? And I just didn't want to. Like, we have a remote team that chose to be remote. There are perks for that. And then there's everyone else who has chosen to be hybrid or in the office. And so it's really deciding as an organization how you're going to treat that, and just kind of set the steadiness of, this is how we do it. Yes, we're going to go for walks, and I'm sorry you can't come along, move back to South Dakota. But I think providing those opportunities to bridge the gaps whenever possible has worked for us.
That's a great suggestion.
Yeah, excuse me. Our staff is split up a little bit. We have some regional presence in the Southwest Territory, Minneapolis, Denver, and then our development team is all remote. But really trying to be intentional with the touch points that we do have as a group. So making sure that our programming's on point, making sure that it's a great use of their time when they're back in South Dakota, to really lean into one another and build some solid relationships that are going to help us be successful long term. But that's only going to happen 4 times a year. So what do you do in the meantime? So we've really encouraged folks to connect. We have, as a former quarterback, we have Monday morning huddles for that team, and they get to talk about what's on their docket each week. And then ideas start to flow about, hey, I've talked to them in the past. Here's what you should bring up. We start to talk about initiatives and where those priorities at our institution lie, and how we can drive those together. So really trying to make that an inclusive environment where we're bouncing good ideas off of one another. Iron sharpens iron, as I say all the time. A couple of heads nodding over there, they know. But just providing those opportunities to be intentional with when you do connect with that team, and making sure they understand the why. We're getting together because, together, collectively, we're better than we are, on our own. And, there's certainly some room for us to grow in that space. The model that we've laid out from a regional presence is still very new to us. But as we continue to listen to folks, we make adjustments necessary to make sure that they connect on a frequent basis and feel like they're a part of the staff and the team.
Very nice.
I don't think it should surprise anybody at this point, but if you hand me a microphone, I'm going to talk about bias. When you think about remote work and hybrid work, the first thing I'll say is there's no replacement for human connection. Like, there just isn't. I'm somebody who works flexibly. I don't call it remote because I'm all over the place. I work truly flexibly. And, there are benefits. There are pros and cons to that. I don't think that you can prioritize one or the over the other if you've got both. But one thing that I would really encourage leaders to be highly cognizant of is what's called proximity bias. Those that are remote, out of sight, out of mind, they're not right next to you, they're not at your right hand. Really important to consider the ways that influences project assignments, who you delegate tasks to, who is considered for promotion, et cetera, because I think that that's one of the most prominent issues that we're seeing today in, the working remote and the flexible environments, where you've got a mix, right, of people who show up every day and people who are getting the meeting after the meeting or getting the meeting before the meeting. And it's ultimately, we can name it, it's proximity bias, and we have to be really assured that we are assessing, right, for that. So.
How about remote happy hours? I mean, I'm an advocate of drinking wine with my computer. I don't know if the rest of you do that, but I like connecting over a glass of wine. And it's actually fine if you guys haven't done it. It can be fun with your remote teams to do happy hour together. You don't necessarily have to be collectively together, but you could sit in front of your computer screen and chat and get to know each other through your virtual happy hours. So that is a thing. So with that, we have just a few minutes left where I want to open it up for questions for our panelists today. Otherwise, we can jump into some other topics, but we only have a few minutes, so I am opening it up to our audience.
I just want to ask you, what was the R in grit?
What was the R in grit? Yeah. Respect. Other questions? All right. Well, then I'm going to leave you with some homework assignments to find your people, create your microcultures, and share snacks with each other, or wine. But remember that building a strong microculture is like creating a perfect playlist. It takes time, effort, and with a few unexpected hits, you can make a good playlist, and it'll be a lot more fun. I do have one last question for you all as you are leaving, if you can answer and fill in the blank. I'm trying to remember how the tune of the song goes. Na 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 na. Hey, 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 goodbye. Thank you all.
Really good.